Kaylee Cuoco and Sam Claflin star in the MGM Plus original series, Vanished. When the man Alice loves disappears on a train to the south of France, every romantic memory becomes evidence. Every intimate detail, a potential threat. She thought she knew everything about him, but she may not even know his real name. 4-part thriller Vanished premieres February 1st on MGM Plus. Finding the truth is a dangerous affair.
I'm Aislinn Green, and this is Unpacked, the podcast that unpacks one tricky topic in travel each week. And this week, our guest is Brian Kelly, or as most people know him, the Points Guy. That's his nickname and the name of the popular travel blog, thepointsguy.com, that educates travelers about travel credit cards, point strategies, and so much more. Brian has been in the points and miles game since he was literally a child. He booked his very first trip using miles at the tender age of 12. A few decades and many blog posts later, he has consolidated all of that knowledge into a new book called, appropriately, How to Win at Travel. It's a primer for anyone who feels overwhelmed by points and miles and knows they are missing out, but intermediate and even expert points and miles aficionados will find useful nuggets too. Here's Brian Kelly on how to win at travel in 2025. Brian, so nice to meet you. Welcome to Unpacked, and congrats on the book.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just had a baby boy, and this is like giving birth again 6 weeks later. So
exactly.
1-2 punch, but I'm so excited.
Okay, so 6 weeks between baby and book launch?
Give or take, yes.
Wow, that's a lot. Okay.
When it rains, it pours.
There you go. And do you have a book tour planned?
I just announced it. So I'm actually my first ever, I'm from Bucks County, Pennsylvania. So my local bookshop that I went to growing up, Doylestown Bookshop, will be my first stop. And then I'm going to Philly, New York, Miami, LA, then probably Austin, Chicago, Boston, and a couple others. So I'm excited. I love meeting readers of the website, hearing their travel stories. And you know what? I can earn a bunch of frequent flyer miles while I'm at it.
If you didn't, I would be shocked and horrified.
Gotta practice what you preach.
Gotta practice what you preach. Well, could we start at the beginning? I love that in your book, you share your origin story when it comes to points and miles, and it goes back to your childhood. Speaking of childhood, so could you share kind of the abbreviated version of how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, so I was always the techie. I was born in 1983, and I remember I got my first computer in 1990, 91. So I was like the 8-year-old hacker of the family. And I was on AOL and Prodigy back in the day. And my dad got a job for a startup, and he was working from home. So I was his computer whiz booking his travel. And the long and short of it is, he came to me one day and said, I have all these frequent flyer miles. I'm one of 4 kids. You know, we didn't do Europe. You know, we were comfortably middle class, but my parents were pretty frugal. Like, we would road trip, maybe go to Florida. But I've always, I don't know, I think it's genetic, and I talk about it in the book, like this wanderlust gene. But I was like, I don't want to do Daytona, you know, so I figured out how to book all 6 of us to go to the Cayman Islands for free. I mean, and this is 1996. I was 12 years old, planned our first family trip. We had to get passports. I remember my dad was like, are there hospitals in the Cayman Islands? I actually used Verbo. The first year Verbo was around. So we were able to rent this beautiful beachfront cottage, you know, that was a doctor in New Jersey. It was his winter house that was empty most of the year. So he was happy to rent it. So we had this amazing family trip. So throughout the 90s, every year, my job was to use my dad's points because he traveled so much. So it was kind of like our consolation prize because he was a business traveler. And that's never in a million years did I think it would become what it has. But I've been doing this game now for a long time, almost 30 years.
A long time. And I like how in the book you talked about the anxiety of that first trip. Can you tell listeners what happened?
The night before, we're all supposed to leave. And mind you, my dad and 3 siblings flew nonstop, Philly to Grand Cayman. We didn't have enough miles to fly together. So my mom and I flew through Miami. We had American miles. And I remember so vividly flying over Cuba with my mom after that layover in Miami, just thinking, what the heck's going to happen? Like, when I see my dad at immigration, is he going to like punish me? Is it horrible? And the look on his face when I saw him, he was just beaming with joy. And I think that probably was the definitive moment for me where travel, it can have its high stakes, but the payoff when that trip is amazing and life-changing. Like I think as a 41-year-old, I think about that trip all the time. And I just am so excited for others. Even if you haven't gotten into the points game by now, the game is everything. It's not even like a nice to have this sub community of frequent flyer people. Like frequent flyer miles and loyalty are the future. So I'm excited for more people to get to experience that.
Well, and your book is kind of the perfect tool to set everyone up. So in the kind of beginning of the book, you talk about how people romanticize like the golden era of travel. And you say that actually we live in a much safer and more beneficial time. So can you tell us what is the platinum age of travel?
So, I think a lot of people are just pessimists. I'm an optimist. I look at the bright side of things. And when you look at just the numbers and how safe travel is today, how connected the world is, and how affordable. You may think travel is really expensive today, but when you look back over time, it actually used to be the golden age of travel was only for rich people, period, yes. Full stop. So yes, you might see pictures of people, oh, that's when they got dressed up. That's just because there was only rich people back then. Yes. And that's not a good thing, it was so exclusive. It was basically 1% of your salary was a domestic flight. So I talk about now, so platinum is a play on loyalty status, and that you don't have to be rich today to fly first class, to fly international. And that is the underpinning of this book, is to teach people that to be an expert traveler, it does not take buying $10,000 tickets. You can have that experience for far, far less. You just need to know how to play the game. So even the most beginner you may have friends who have points, may have said, this thing's too complicated. Well, now there's a book. So yes. There's no more excuses. You can sit and read this book. I'm 100% sure you may not get every single of the more nuanced credit cards. It might get a little confusing, but it will give you the foundations to understand, this whole ecosystem, it's lucrative. And I want everyone to finish the book and say, there's like 3 big things I need to be doing today, whether it's paying my rent with a credit card that has no fees, so I not only earn points, but increase my credit score. And that's another kind of overarching theme of the book, is like by playing the points game smartly, you don't just get points and free travel. That's like a really nice perk of it. But also you're just smarter, your credit can go up, and you learn how to maximize. That's my favorite word, is like you approach things differently when you become a points person, because you realize there's so much value on the table.
Yeah, it is a mindset shift. When I finished your book, I felt like, this is a book that I would have to read 2 more times. And each time, maybe you go a layer deeper or you become a bit more sophisticated. But there were things that I'm like, I got to do this right now. It's like 10 p.m.
And I had to stop myself. So the book's 300 pages, 15 chapters. And this is like trimmed down. There were so many things. And it was challenging for me because I'm a blogger to the core. So starting the Points Guide 15 years ago, I love to go into one topic and go down a rabbit hole. And I found myself doing that while writing the book. And I had to say to myself, this isn't a blog post. I need to give the high level. So I know for sure, like the book will give you the foundation of being like, you're going to take notes and be like, I got to follow up here, here, and here. Because people did say, they're like, well, why would anyone read your book? Because there's a million blog posts all over the internet. I'm like, because there's a million posts, what human can start sequentially and put it all together? And I know that most people can't, because I started this blog 15 years ago. And while I'm so proud of how popular it's become, people are still confused because the game keeps changing. So like what I'm teaching in the book is like fundamentals to think differently so you can tweak your personal strategy.
Well, you mentioned you are an optimist, and that did jump out at me because there's been a lot of talk, especially over the past few years, about inflation around points and devaluation. So how are you still an optimist? Why are you still an optimist?
So look, with points, there's 3 sides of the coin: earning points, redeeming points, and then perks, getting these non-point related values from your card, such as protections when things go wrong. People don't realize your credit card, if your flight's delayed and you have to go and get an airport hotel, you may have to wait in line for 2 hours with an airline to get a voucher for Motel 6 when your credit card will put you up at the Westin in the airport for free. Or you lose something and there's purchase protection. I bought a coat and lost it recently, and I got it instantly taken off my credit card bill. So the perks are super valuable. But back to your question of inflation. So when you look purely at like the cost of flights in terms of miles, yes, the airlines keep charging more and more. So like that round trip flight 10 years ago to Europe in business class used to be like 100,000 points. It's now 250,000 on some airlines, but there are many where it's less. So you beat inflation two ways. Number one, by diversifying your currencies. And that's a big lesson I hope people get. Even if you like United and you fly United and you have a United co-brand, that's not the winning strategy. You can still fly United and have a United credit card for perks, free bags, but you're going to put all your real spend on a different credit card so that you can transfer to the best frequent flyer programs. So leveraging transfer partners is a big lesson that I think most people, even frequent flyers, get wrong. And secondly, you earn more points. So there's never been a time where you can earn as many points from credit cards. When I started the Points Guy, it was really Amex, Chase, and Citi, kind of. Now there's twice as many credit card issuers with rock star credit cards, 100,000 point bonuses, small business credit cards. You can now earn points on rent, shopping. So as long as you're earning more than what inflation is happening, you can still win. Plus, then you factor in the cherry on top, all those perks, and you're taking that money off the table. That's how you stay ahead of the curve. And I think that's where most people still have a credit card and point strategy rooted in strategy from 10 years ago. And that's what I want people to open their eyes that, like, you need to keep evolving with this industry. And I'm going to show you the core areas you need to focus on.
Well, you also said that knowledge is our currency when it comes to travel. It's less about actually having the money and more about having the info. Can you just share a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yeah. So you don't need to buy points. So many of the points that we earn today are built into the cost of our economy. So when you go buy a shirt at a store that's $20, if you pay with cash, you're losing out on valuable points. It's the same price of merchandise, but you could have had 40 points by using the right credit card. And that's just a tiny little example. So you just need to know where to get points. Online shopping, the easiest thing you can do is click through online shopping portals. It puts a cookie on your computer and you earn free extra points in addition to those credit card points. So there's all of these ways to be raking in value without spending a single extra cent. The more you mine your knowledge into the loyalty programs you have, the more valuable they become. So yes, you can take the defeatist attitude of American Airlines keeps changing the rules, therefore their miles are less valuable. No, there's still tons of sweet spots for those who know. There's tons of technology now. I go into all these new apps and tools that scan for you. So when you combine earning more points than ever, new technologies to scan airlines, to snatch those really good flights that are still out there, that's where experts and even intermediates in this space can get outsized value. So basically, for those who want to put in a little bit of extra work, there's huge returns.
Well, getting into some of those concrete tips, because you liken traveling better or winning at travel to a sport. So how would you suggest that someone begin their training regimen, so to speak?
Travel is my favorite sport. And I'm not going to lie, it can be challenging some days. But the first step at winning at travel, I would say, is before you leave your house, it's while booking travel. I think a lot of people make mistakes by, just going to one airline's website and assuming they're getting the best price, or, just going on to book hotels and going through an online travel agency. When, if you went directly to the hotel for the same price, you could also get really valuable hotel rewards, perks, or by booking through, if you like luxury hotels like I do, it kills me because so many people will go directly to fourseasons.com, but you can even get cheaper rates by booking through partnered high-end luxury travel advisors, same rate, but hundreds in extra perks, late checkout, free champagne. But that's why people just don't know that, because if you're not a luxury traveler, you're going to spend I'm going to go on my honeymoon to the Four Seasons Maui. Oh, let me just go to fourseasons.com/Maui. No, please. And that's where people always come to me after the fact and they're like, oh, well, I booked this really cheap economy ticket in this real, like basic economy. It's my honeymoon, but now I want to upgrade it. I'm like, you can't, because you booked the wrong fare class. So winning at travel starts at, and I go through this in the beginning chapters, is thinking strategically about how you book travel, the platform, the website. Because, even with airlines these days, the airlines want you to book direct. And if your flight gets canceled, if you book through some online travel agencies, if there's a flight 30 minutes later, if you book through the airline, they'll put you on the next flight. But if you book through certain OTAs, you have to call the OTA. And can you imagine, I know this, sitting at the airport waiting to get through and you miss the connecting flight.
Yes.
And that happens to lots and lots of people. And I see it keep happening. I'm so keenly attuned to social media, especially during these meltdowns. In the airports, I see people waiting in the 2 hour long line. And I'm like, no, people, like you can go online, chatbot, when you're stuck at the airport, call the international line, the Mexico help desk for your airline. You're probably going to get through in 5 minutes versus 2 hours. And that is winning because you can get through before everyone else and snag the last seat home. So so winning is a mentality that you need to do a little bit of research, hence my book, which takes you from the beginning to when things, there's a whole chapter on when things go wrong, how to upgrade, etc. So yeah, it's a mentality and it's a sport, and it gets better with time as you practice.
Speaking of flights, you shared a few misconceptions around booking that I thought were quite interesting. Would you mind sharing just one or two?
I think people need to be more strategic about booking flights. Not all airplanes are the same. Talk about New York to LA. There are certain aircraft that have beautiful lie flat beds with your own privacy doors. And then there are some with 20-year-old business class that are angled lie flat where you have to step over your seatmate. And they're the same price. So when you look on Google Flights, it all looks the same, but it's not. So I teach travelers, here are the things that you need to look out for. Also, the flight time, the time in which you fly, especially internationally, and especially for jet lag. I learned so much while writing the travel health chapter. I sat down with scientists and learned all about your circadian clock is so critical to jet lag. And it's funny, I was writing this book, a portion of that chapter, I was in Tokyo. And interestingly, the hardest hit route for jet lag is New York to Tokyo. When I came home from that Tokyo trip, it was 6 days of waking up at 3:30, 4 a.m., wide awake. And I'm a dad, and I'm writing a book and also working full time. And I'm like, you realize later in life, like your time is more and more precious. And back in the day, okay, jet lag, I'll wake up and watch some like crappy TV show. But then you're like, oh no, but I need to be on and a parent all day and then work and then go on live TV to do my job. I just can't run on that 3 hours of sleep like I used to. So the whole jet lag chapter is really fascinating, learning about light exposure. I always just assumed, okay, just try to get as much sleep on the plane and then you'll be good to go. But in fact, that can be really detrimental and set you back. You can actually hurt yourself by sleeping at the wrong times and by getting exposed to light at the wrong times. So I hope people just take nuggets out of that to think a little bit differently about how they approach travel, because I know it's tough when you're in first class on a plane and you want to drink the free alcohol. But think about it like, I'm going to Paris. Let me just have a much better martini at a gorgeous restaurant, fully rested, than being bleary-eyed falling asleep at this fine dining restaurant. I just like to have different mindsets for people to think about. Just think a little bit differently about how they approach travel, the flights they book, just being a little bit smarter.
Well, moving on to credit cards, if someone is a beginner who has maybe flirted with this, what are your core tips to begin in this space?
Number one, to win at the credit card game, you must pay your bills off in full every month. So travel credit cards that offer points have really high interest rates compared to like the 0% APR. So there's a credit card for every situation. And I go through this in the book. Like if you're in debt right now and you're paying 20, 30% APR, you will be paying many times more the value of the points you're earning. So the core focus should be just getting debt free. That's the easiest way to get your credit score up. I was in credit card debt and did dumb things when I graduated college. I thought bills would just disappear. They don't. And I want people to treat their credit score like an asset. So step number one is understanding the upside with credit cards and understanding how credit works. I think it's amazing how we never learn how credit scores work. And there are a lot of myths out there that like, oh, if I apply for credit card, it's going to destroy my credit score. And it's like a nugget of that is true. And that like your score will go down 2, maybe 5 points. Now, out of 850, that's negligible. That's not tanking your score. But what people don't realize is as long as you pay that bill off in full every month, the more available credit you have to you. The way credit works is they judge how responsible you are by how much available credit you have and how much you're using. It's what's called utilization. So if you were to have one credit card, $5,000 credit line, and even if you paid off on the due date, but it's $3,000 a month that you're paying off, it can report as like 75% utilization, and your score can drop really far. But if you had $50,000 through 5 different credit cards and you were using 3,000, your utilization, which is your second highest aspect, is super low. Your score will shoot up. So the more credit you have available, the more credit cards you pay on time every month, which is the number one factor that goes into your score. So that's how you can get these juicy sign-up bonuses, which are thousands of dollars these days, if you know how to use them. And then number two, you have a lot of different credit cards that you can get bonuses on the category spend, making sure you're earning for your groceries, dining, drugstores, streaming. There's so many different rents. You want to look at every single category that you spend money on and make sure you're getting ideally more than 1 cent or 1 point per dollar spent. So the credit game is fascinating. You earn all these points, but your score goes up over time so that when it's time to get a mortgage, you'll get a better mortgage rate. And that can save you many thousands of dollars. So this points game, all the travel perks are great, but like your credit score being primo and getting a lifetime of really low interest rates for cars, for mortgages, that's the big picture that I want people to see.
And I do appreciate that throughout the book that you really emphasize responsible credit card management. And I wanted to touch on that a little bit and get your suggestions, because there is that research that points to people spending on average like 10 to 20% more when they use credit versus cash or debit. So how have you stayed within your spending goals? I don't want to say a budget. And what would you suggest for travelers?
Well, I don't necessarily agree. I think a lot of those studies were many years ago. And frankly, there is a large population of people who, if given any credit, will spend crazily. There is a culture in America. And truly, like, this book and credit cards isn't for you if you don't want to play by the rules. There are rules to this game,
Yeah.
and you have to play by them. So if you, and I say this very clearly, if you're going to get a new credit card and you're going to be spending more than you would have, you're losing. Don't do it. I think financial literacy is a muscle, especially younger generations now with FinTalk, and people are getting the game, like how to win against these big companies. So I do think consumers are smart at the core level. And I actually think people spend smarter when they can see how much they're spending in digital apps. There's a lot of downsides to cash. So not only are you foregoing the points, but you're also foregoing the protection. So that package from a random Instagram ad that never shows up, this happened to me the other day. You literally just text, through the app, dispute the charge. I never got this. They can't prove you did. Boom, it's off. So like credit cards offer so much protection, and those are the intangible perks that I really just wish more people knew about. And then thirdly, instead of just using your cash, you can let that sit in a high yield savings account for a month to 45 days before you pay it off. So you're earning interest, earning points, and earning protections if anything goes wrong. Like, that is the mentality. You should let these banks loan you free money if you're smart about just keeping your cash in high yield savings and earning and paying your bills up when you need to.
Yeah, it's like you need to know yourself, right? And know what temptations lead you astray. So you mentioned in the book too that you have 28 credit cards, which you say is on the low side for those in this industry, which I've heard upwards of 50, 60. So how do you manage all of that? How do you recommend that travelers, like, to make sure you're getting the benefit out of each one? It seems complex.
It is complex. and I have a spreadsheet. I think there's apps that you can use. I do warn that a lot of these apps, you're going to give a lot of personal data. I'm pretty crazy. Most of my credit cards are Amex, Chase, Capital One, and Bilt. Those are the ones I use every day. I have auto pay for all of them. And I always have enough cash to at least no matter what, always have every single credit card, the minimum payment. I mean, even if you get hit with an interest payment 1 month, it's not the end of the world. Half the time, if you don't pay it, you can actually pay it right away and call and ask them to waive the interest. That's another core tip of the book, is it never hurts to ask. With airlines, with credit cards, people feel defeated. But I can't tell you how many free things I've gotten over the years. Upgrades, getting on the earlier flight, even though it's international and technically you're not supposed to. But if you're nice to people, it never hurts to ask. So back to your answer, I'm maniacal about it. I think anyone in the points game should be always, do routine audits to make sure that you're actually getting the right amount of points for certain purchases? Did it code as a restaurant? Sometimes restaurants switch their processors, so you can kind of double check on your own to make sure you're getting what you deserve. And nowadays with chatbots, it's so easy to say, hey, for this big banquet purchase for my birthday party, it didn't code as 4X for dining. Can you fix that? I'm pretty manual about it still. There are apps out there that I go into the book. Award Wallet's one that'll track most of your miles and points. It'll let you know if there's expiration. There are apps that'll let you know if you've got credits that you haven't used on your credit card. But I'm a little old-fashioned, and I recommend people in the beginning just put up a spreadsheet with the core information. Here are the perks on this card that I need to use. What categories does it give me bonuses, et cetera?
You mentioned Award Wallet, and there were a few other tech tools or apps that you recommend throughout the book. Are there, say, 3 that you feel like are essential?
Yeah, I'll say Award Wallet's wonderful. It's been around for many years. I know the founder. He's a points nerd. It's not perfect. So without getting into the weeds, the loyalty world is so lucrative for airlines and hotels. The airlines and hotels don't like these third-party apps coming in and trying to take you out of their ecosystem. So sometimes it's a cat and mouse game. Some airlines don't allow you to track automatically. There's workarounds. So the reason why, it's not because for lack of trying, but the loyalty industry, it's a big, big money maker. This is how the airlines make more money selling points. So they want you going directly to their website. I have to say that point.me, I would say, is the closest thing to be like Google Flights. So airlines all share their fare data so that you can shop on online travel agencies when buying a flight. But the same does not exist or hadn't when using your miles. So if you have miles all over the place and you just want to go Chicago to Paris, in the old days, you'd have to go airline by airline, check their award prices, sort of have 20 tabs open. Now there's a bunch of new tools. Not one of them is perfect, but point.me is the closest, I would say. And it's free if you have Amex and Bilt. So this will actually tell you, oh, this is the price to go Chicago to Paris. Instead of spending on a $1,000 economy flight, you might be able to book it, which is 100,000 points through the credit card or paying. You can get it for 30,000 by transferring to Air France, or 50,000 by transferring to Aeroplan, which is a partner with United, because it gets very complicated on the redemption side. So Point.me is one of the more user-friendly. So you can just put in a certain day, you can put in your airport where you want to go. Seats.aero is the more expert tool, and this one I adore. It takes a little bit to get used to, but to win at points, you need to be flexible. And a key thing I mentioned in the book is let the deal shape where you go. Because if you can find great award deals, book the trip around those dates when you can find them, and then save so much money so that you can spend on the things you love, like those fancy meals. So Seats.aero allows you to take airline by airline. And let's just take Emirates, for example. Emirates is one of my favorite airlines. Their first class is out of this world, unlimited caviar, Dom Perignon, showers on board certain aircraft. They fly JFK to Milan, which is the most fabulous way to go on your summer trip to Italy. Well, Seats.aero will actually, if you're a pro version, it'll actually take a full year, and it'll show you all the days that are first class and by route. So you can take that data and then you work your trips around the availability, if that's a possibility. I love just getting inspiration to be like, oh, there's business class to Tokyo next week. Let's do that, be spontaneous. So
yeah.
Having those tools takes a lot of the manual search out of it. So they're a little wonky, but trust me, if you're in the points game, you can get 3 times the value of your points than what you're normally getting by leveraging these technologies.
I think that's actually, from my anecdotal understanding, where people get the most confused is on the redemption side. Like the earning feels a little more straightforward, but when it comes to redeeming, it's just feels like Wild West a little bit. So that chapter is really helpful.
There's an epidemic of points hoarding. There's a lot of a lot of people just want to keep their points, but once again, the inflation is going up. So your points lose value over time. So use them now. Stop hoarding points, because if you just keep holding them, you're losing value. So on the same token, you don't want to squander your points for magazine subscriptions, but you want to have a strategy in place. Yeah. And once you start redeeming for really good value, when you're redeeming for business class for less than what you would have paid for coach, that's when this will click. And that's when you will become a hardcore points user.
One of my main takeaways was that you don't really chase elite status on an airline anymore. I thought that was so interesting. Could you just share a little bit about where we're at with that?
So elite status, when I started the Points Guide in 2010, basically 80% of domestic first class seats were given away for free to elite members. So elite status, and back then you could fly a certain amount of cheap flights and get top tier status. So there was a lot of gamification of that, like where people go on mileage runs. So you could fly $500 to Tokyo and get elite status and free upgrades for 2 years. That game has flipped. So now only about 20% of those same seats are available for upgrades. So a lot of the perks have been getting watered down. I'm now more loyal to my credit cards because the airlines now have increased the bar for elite status, decreased the benefits. So the calculation is not a slam dunk like it used to be. The old notion, the habit of just getting elite status because you're hooked on it, take a deep, hard look and say, the airlines now require much more than just flying on them. Now you need to spend huge amounts of money.
So much money.
And the opportunity cost, which you learn about in the points earning chapter, is that by spending on a, frankly, airline co-brand card and earning these somewhat less valuable airline miles when you could be earning huge amounts of super valuable credit card points that you can transfer to all different airlines, there's a huge opportunity cost. By saying to an airline, I'm only going to get airline miles. Well, what happens when you want to fly Emirates and all you have are Delta miles and you can't transfer points from one airline to another? Am I getting the value through the elite perks? Am I getting those upgrades and better service? For some people they are, but I would say for the lower elite tiers, take a cold hard look at that. And so basically be more loyal to credit cards than to airlines.
You mentioned this earlier, the importance of kindness, especially when things go wrong. And you have a whole chapter on how to win when things go wrong. In some situations, you're saying, like, I know that a flight was canceled before the gate agents do. So any main takeaways from what to do when things go wrong and why it's so important just to be nice to people?
So my tip for when things go wrong, which they will, number one is have the right information. People who operate out of a lack of information make mistakes. So understand why the flight's delayed. That will open up, well, how flexible is the airline going to be with reaccommodating me? Now, if this was like a nationwide FAA outage, you're going to have a little bit less flexibility because the agent's going to be like, look, I'm dealing with everyone. Everyone needs to get to where they're going. If the airline oversold the flight, you've got a lot more flexibility, and the airline does too. The agents have a different toolkit for how to deal with you. So understanding where you're at and really understanding, are you asking for a favor, which most people are and they don't realize. So understand the difference of what am I owed? And the rule of law with airlines is the contract of carriage, which most people probably never heard of. And I explain that whenever you buy an airline ticket, you're agreeing to a set of rules with the airline. There are some rules with the government, and those have actually gotten better for consumers. But in general, you need to be strategic in your ask. So back to information is like knowing what other options are available. If you can go to an airline agent and say, hey, look, there's one seat open on this other flight. I got to get to, the West Coast. I'm fine flying to San Francisco. Flight number Delta 419. There's one coach seat. Can you please do it? Thank you. I can't tell you how different that is than you screaming at the agent saying, you guys always cancel my flight. Like, think about it. If you were behind that counter and someone's being a jerk to you, are you going to go above and beyond and even stick your neck out on the line to get, because agents now can get in trouble for bending the rules. So think to yourself, am I giving this agent a really good reason to help me? Because they have all the power. Bottom line, the airline's not going to care if you complain and you're, even if you have a big social media following, they don't care.
Yeah.
So just be strategic. Say, am I doing everything right now that's going to get me what I want? I'm impatient, so I can get testy. And I still have to learn this many years in. So I get the natural reaction, but think bigger picture. And if you're asking for a favor, you got to approach it a little bit different.
Yeah. You also mentioned how things go wrong and you're the first person on the app or on the phone rather than standing in line. Like last year, there was a big epic meltdown on my layover in Dallas. There were 2-hour lines waiting just to get hotel vouchers. I just left. I booked a hotel on my phone, took an Uber, and got one of like the last hotel rooms on the outskirts of the city. And I was like, oh, sometimes you just figure it out on your own and then you try to get compensation later, right?
So the DOT now has rules that state you will get a refund. If your flight's canceled for any reason, you're getting a refund if you want it. So knowing that, if the airline you're flying on has no other flights home, book yourself on another airline. Use points. A lot of people don't realize when your flight's canceled on one airline, you can book on points on another as a backup option. And one of the most beautiful things to happen out of the pandemic is almost every airline loyalty program. This is a huge lesson that people don't realize is you can redeem your points and cancel up until departure and get all your miles and points back free of charge. So what I do, the minute I smell a delay, and another tip I give in the book is how to start smelling delays before it shows up on the board. It's understanding where your flight's coming in from, understanding the weather patterns in the country that day, using sites like FlightAware, to understand, are there delays in Chicago? So I get way ahead of the game. And if I see that my incoming flight's delayed, well, generally that means your flight's probably going to be. So I then start thinking, okay, if I really need to get to where I'm going, I just book another flight on a different airline so that if my flight does indeed get delayed and canceled, I've already got the backup. If I don't need that backup option, if my flight doesn't end up being delayed, I cancel, I get all my points back, no cash out of pocket. So points become an insurance policy. And I would say 95% of people out there who have points don't even realize that you could just be booking backup options when things go wrong. And if the airline does take care of you, and then just cancel the points reservation. Nothing lost. Just remember to cancel it before departure. If you don't cancel it before the flight takes off, you lose it. But once again, it's about knowing the rules and, using them for your advantage.
And smelling delays. I like that phrasing. Well, I'd love to wrap up with where you think things are going. You have a chapter at the very end of the book. So if you had to predict 5 years from now where we'll be, especially with the rise of tools like AI, what would you say?
Well, I do think there's a lot of friction in travel today, whether that's in waiting in lines, immigration, biometrics, AI to help solve problems. You still need to wait in those lines in airports and wait on phone lines. And I think there'll be more self-service. So I'm hopeful travel will continue to get easier. And I also hope, right now there's a lot of uncertainty with planes and aviation. Boeing is not meeting its production. Airbus, there's going to be a lack of pilots and planes, and all while increasing demand. So there's a lot of pressure on the system now. But like I said earlier, I'm an optimist, and I do think technology can alleviate a lot of that. But people today need to understand the system to get ahead of it. You need to be your own best advocate. That's not changing anytime soon. And unfortunately, we're going to see some airlines continue to die out as the big ones get bigger. We've seen huge consolidation. Spirit Airlines is on the brink. They're in bankruptcy. They just had mass layoffs. JetBlue's struggling. So the smaller ones are struggling. Southwest, the big dogs will get bigger. The small ones get smaller. Is that good for consumers? I don't know. So I'm kind of painting a bleak image, but I think now more than ever, you need to know the ins and outs. So you can't just wait to be taken care of, because you're going to be waiting a long time.
Totally. And your book helps people get ahead of the game. So thank you so much, Brian, for joining us today and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you for having me and for reading the book. I'm so excited for it to get out there.
And that was Brian Kelly. In the show notes, we have linked to his new book, How to Win at Travel, as well as to his website. You'll also find a link to a complimentary story I wrote where I pulled out some of my favorite tips from the book, strategies that I will be putting into place this year. Ready for more unpacking? Visit afar.com and be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We're at Afar Media. If you enjoyed today's exploration, I hope you'll come back for more great stories. Subscribing always makes that easy, and be sure to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast platforms. It helps other travelers find it. And if you want to ask a question or suggest a topic for coverage, you can leave us a voicemail at the link in the show notes or email us at unpackedafar.com. This has been Unpacked, a production of Afar Media. The podcast is produced by Aislinn Green and Nikki Galteland. Music composition by Chris Cullen. And remember, the travel world is complicated. We're here to help you unpack it.